My boyfriend's first love and white moonlight has cancer. Her last wish before dying is to hold a wedding with him. They pick out wedding dresses together, decide on an auspicious day together, and decorate our wedding room into what the white moonlight likes. He asks me to be good and sensible and give him a month. I really don't love her. I just hope she can leave happily. But he doesn't know that I am also dying soon. Just after coming home from a physical examination and before I could turn on the light, I was pinned against the door and kissed. Let's get married. Messiah was reeking of alcohol and skillfully unbuttoned my clothes. Why so suddenly? I hadn't recovered yet and subconsciously wrapped my arms around his neck to respond. In the 5 years we've been together, he has never mentioned getting married. Every time I asked, he always found reasons to evade. What's going on today? Nothing. I just feel that I should give you a promise. His movements were hurried and fast. After unbuttoning the third button, he lost patience and directly pushed up my hem. But then the phone rang. Messiah's body stiffened. He ignored it and continued to kiss me. Aren't you going to answer it? I pushed him. He said as if he was sulking with someone, no. But a few seconds later, he suddenly let me go. Forget it. You go take a bath first. After saying that, he took the phone and went to the balcony. The lit phone screen flashed a name: Toccata. Messiah's ex-girlfriend. My heart tightened. And I finally understood why he was abnormal tonight. When I came out after taking a bath, Messiah had finished his call and was sitting on the balcony smoking. Hearing my footsteps, he didn't turn his head but just told me calmly, Toccata is back. She is sick and refuses to receive treatment. At the classmate banquet tonight, she insisted that I marry her before she would be willing to be hospitalized. No wonder. He rarely smokes usually. But at this time, the ashtray beside him is already full of cigarette butts. I unconsciously tightened the towel in my hand. Then what? Did he agree? Is he not going to marry me anymore? Or does he want to throw this problem to me and let me take the initiative to quit? Messiah let out a breath and looked in a bad mood. There is no then. I refused. After he finished speaking, he stubbed out the cigarette in his hand and got up and went back to the room. Go to bed early. I'm a bit tired today. I looked at his back lying on the bed. My chest felt as if a ball of cotton was stuck in it, and it was very uncomfortable. Why? Didn't he already say he refused? Why do I still feel so uncomfortable? The next day, I was woken up by a rapid doorbell. What are you doing here? Messiah didn't know when he got up and angrily scolded the unexpected visitor outside. Almost instantly, I woke up. At the same time, a female voice with a crying tone came. Messiah, this is the house where we live together. You bought it. Which means you haven't forgotten me. Right? I came back this time especially for you. There was a buzzing in my head. And a string broke. In the second year after Messiah and I got together through a blind date. His work had a leapfrog development. The first thing Messiah did after making money was to buy the house we live in now. At that time, I was still very strange. This place is far from where he works. And the transportation is not very convenient. Why did he buy it here? He told me that the environment here is good. The most important thing is that he likes it. Recalling the smile that he inadvertently showed when he said this at that time, a chill crept into my heart. Does he like the environment he or the person who lived here with him before? I put on a shawl and walked out of the room. I heard Messiah reject mercilessly. No, I already have a girlfriend. We will get married soon. I can't marry you. Fortunately. Messiah's answer reassured me a lot. No matter what his past was like. At least he has firmly chosen me now. The girl standing at the door wide and her eyes in disbelief slightly, seeing me through his shoulder. Her tears flowed even more fiercely. Sorry. I disturbed you. She looked at Messiah disappointed. Lie. Remember, even if I will always love you. It was such a sentence like a farewell that made Messiah's back stiffen. The girl ran away crying. I had just come to Messiah and was about to hold his hand. You. In the next second, Messiah dodged. He looked at me with pain and guilt. She. Sorry. I can't watch her have an accident. I suddenly froze. The pain passed through my limbs like an electric current from my heart. By the time I reacted, Messiah had already rushed out. I also mechanically followed and walked out of the house. I saw him holding the constantly struggling girl tightly. His voice was almost trembling and choking. Tokata. Let's not make trouble anymore. Okay? Be good and obedient. I promise to marry you. This is a Messiah I have never seen before. Humble and helpless. Completely different from me, usually reserved and self-controlled him. At that moment, I knew I had lost. When Messiah came back, I was packing my luggage in the room. She. What are you doing? He was a little panicked and rushed up to stop me from taking clothes from the closet. I calmly broke up with him. But he got angry. Kiao. I won't break up with you. You are not allowed to leave me. Saying that, he kissed me viciously. With anger and resentment. Pa. I slapped him hard. Messiah. You promised to marry her but won't break up with me. Do you still want to enjoy the happiness of having two women? My voice was trembling. I had never been so angry with him as I am now. I especially remember when I met him for the first blind date. Before we met, I was pestered by several hooligans. He protected me behind him with a cold expression as if he descended from the sky. When my nose hit his back, I smelled his unique and clear perfume, like a cedar tree covered with snow on its branches in the bleak wind of winter. From then on, I liked him. At this moment, Messiah helplessly grabbed his hair and sat on the bed, murmuring, "Then what can I do? Tokata is sick. The doctor said it is an incurable disease. There is only 1 month left. I don't want her to leave with regrets." I stood there stunned, watching him sob slightly because of his emotional breakdown. Suddenly, I didn't know how to say the words I wanted to question him. Say that he is duplicitous and fickle-minded? Or tell him not to marry someone else? But that woman has an incurable disease. What am I arguing with a dying person for? The atmosphere suddenly became quiet. Seeing that I didn't speak, Messiah started to discuss with me again. He took a deep breath and hugged me with bloodshot eyes. She. Just 1 month. Just give me 1 month. I really don't love her. I just hope she can leave happily. At this point, what else can I say? In the 5 years we've been together, Messiah and I have always gotten along very well. Now that we are finally about to get married, I don't want to give up this relationship because of a dying person. I looked up and held back my tears and pried apart his hands that were tightly holding me. Okay. I'll give you 1 month. After agreeing to get married, Tokata was indeed willing to be hospitalized obediently. Messiah seemed to be in a much better mood. For several days in a row, he went directly to the hospital after work. When he came home at night, he tiredly buried his head in my hair. She. I'm so tired. My movement of massaging his neck paused slightly. Who can he blame? Who made him worry about 2 women at the same time? The next day, when I proposed to visit the hospital, I thought Messiah wouldn't agree. Unexpectedly, he agreed without hesitation. My heart also relaxed a bit. Not avoiding my meeting with her means that he has no secrets from me. Messiah also said that he would take me there on the way after work. But after I got off work and waited left and right, I didn't wait for him to pick me up. After I called him, he explained to me regretfully, Tokata suddenly wanted to eat cake. That store closes relatively early, so I came here first to line up to buy cake for her. When he called that girl's name, his tone was helpless and doting, as if he was willing to endure any tiredness. She. I'm sorry. Messiah apologized to me again. My smile froze on my face. What is he sorry for? He just went to buy cake for her first. The reason is also very clear. That store closes relatively early. If he picks me up and then goes there, he might not be able to buy it. He is just weighing the pros and cons. But why do I still feel so uncomfortable? Later, I didn't let him come back to pick me up. Instead, I took a taxi directly to the hospital by myself. On the way, I also bought a bouquet of baby's breath. When I arrived at the hospital, Messiah had already arrived. As soon as I entered the door, I saw him gently feeding the girl on the hospital bed with cake. The girl was pure and beautiful. She accidentally got cream on her lips, and pointed at the wedding dresses in the album and asked him which one was more beautiful. Messiah lifted his hand and wiped the cream from her lips. His Adam's apple rolled slightly and said that either one was good. This picture was so beautiful that I couldn't bear to disturb it. Even the nurse who was infusing the girl on the side teased, "You two young couples have such a good relationship." Messiah didn't deny it. He just skillfully tucked the quilt corner for the girl. When he saw me, he was stunned for a moment, and then pulled out a smile generously. She. You are here." The girl looked over following his voice. Only then did I put away the little bit of embarrassed jealousy in my heart and walked in with a calm smile. "I didn't expect you to arrive before me. Toccata. I wish you a speedy recovery." I handed over the bouquet. The girl smiled and thanked me. There was no hostility on her face. She was like an innocent, lovely and inexperienced little girl. But just when she was about to take the baby's breath, a large hand with distinct knuckles snatched it away first. Toccata is allergic to pollen. As soon as she touches it, she will break out in red rashes all over her body. She. You should have told me in advance when you bought something. Toccata's reproach was probably aimed at Messiah. Obviously it was blaming me for buying the wrong thing. But her tone was neither too light nor too heavy. It was like a slap in the face to me, leaving me with no right to be angry. I forced a smile. "Sorry. It was my own decision." "Oh. It's nothing. It's all because Messiah is overreacting." The girl on the hospital bed smiled considerately. "It's also my fault for scaring him before. When we had our first date, I didn't tell him that I was allergic to pollen. When he came to see me, he brought me a bouquet of flowers. As a result, I broke out in red rashes all over my body. Messiah was so scared that he carried me and ran for 3 kilometers. This fool didn't even know to take a car at that time." The girl smiled shyly, instantly adding a lot of brightness to this dim room. "No wonder Messiah likes her so much. She is really extraordinary. Especially when it comes to sowing discord." Messiah noticed that I was unhappy. During the break when he was getting water, he pulled me into the independent bathroom. "Sorry. I shouldn't have been so harsh to you just now." He hugged me and apologized. His lips brushed against my earlobe intentionally or unintentionally, teasing me and also pleasing me. I put my hand on his chest and dodged his touch. "Stop it. Messiah. I don't like this." Messiah chuckled softly. His mischievous hand slipped in from my hem until it covered a certain place. "Don't like it?" I trembled slightly and bit my lip without saying a word. Just when Messiah was about to kiss me, there was a sudden scream outside the door, accompanied by the sound of glass breaking. Messiah pushed me away abruptly and rushed out without even a moment's pause. "What's wrong? Why did you get out of bed without shoes again?" My waist hit the sink hard. The intense pain made my brain go blank for a moment. Listening to Messiah's angry scolding outside, I smiled bitterly at myself. With tears welling up in my eyes, I pulled down my hem and walked out. I saw a broken glass by the girl's feet. Although he shouted fiercely when he put down the girl, he was extremely careful. Every movement seemed carefully designed and full of care. "Sorry, Messiah. I just wanted to drink water." Who knew that my hand was weak and I didn't hold it firmly? Messiah's face was cold and he didn't respond. He grabbed her ankle and asked, "Are you injured?" He was such a clean person. Yet he held another girl's foot in his palm. And once I just wore his pajamas. And he never touched me again. At this moment, the two were like an intimate couple. The girl's chest was directly pressed against Messiah's arm. My mind was in a mess and became very strange. Clearly I was Messiah's girlfriend. But I actually felt that I was redundant standing here. Later, Messiah still went to the hospital to take care of her every day. After I went there once, I never went again. In just 1 month, he spent more time with that girl than I. His official girlfriend. The girl also called Messiah away from me more and more frequently. Sometimes at night when Messiah and I had just fallen asleep, we could also receive her call. Messiah, my chest hurts. I feel like I'm about to die. Can you come and accompany me? Messiah, I dreamed that I died before our wedding could be completed. Can you not leave me? Messiah, when will my wedding dress be ready? Have the guests been invited? I feel more and more panicked recently. I don't know if I'm about to die. She always seemed to have endless reasons. I pulled Messiah's sleeve. Can you not go tonight? Messiah frowned slightly, looking a bit angry. Kiao Shi. I've been very tired recently. Don't be willful. Tokata is sick now, and she needs my care. But I need you too. I've been very uncomfortable recently. The stomach problem that has tortured me for several years has recurred. These days, it hurts repeatedly at night. Messiah still left and didn't come back all night. The next day when he came back, he simply packed some toiletries and was about to go out again. I was woken up by him and asked what he was doing. He frowned as if he was very troubled. Recently, Tokata is getting more and more anxious and can't be left without someone taking care of her. I plan to stay in the hospital. Hearing this, a desperate chill spread throughout my body. I didn't stop him anymore. Anyway, it was useless to say anything. All I got in return was, she is a patient. But I really want to ask Messiah. Does he really take care of his ex-girlfriend so attentively just because she is a patient? Tokata invited me to try on wedding dresses in the store. I don't know how she got my phone number, and I don't understand why she asked me to accompany her. Messiah went to book the auditorium and also needs to decorate the scene. Although I told him to do it simply, he insists on making it so formal. Tokata held my arm intimately like a sister and explained these things to me. Her delicate face was full of blush and she didn't look like a patient at all. I still came. For no other reason. I just wanted to see how far Messiah could go for her. Unexpectedly, I was still jealous. When I proposed marriage to Messiah before, he always said that he didn't have time, and the wedding process was very troublesome. But now, Messiah, who is so afraid of trouble, would actually take time off work and personally prepare the wedding auditorium for another girl. Just like I once thought that he was rational and restrained in his feelings. But in fact, his love is not rational. It's just that he won't be impulsive for me. It wasn't until I saw with my own eyes how he took great care of another girl that I realized that he could also love someone blatantly and with great fanfare. The girl beside me was still talking to herself. Messiah and I have always had a regret in our hearts all these years. Many years ago, when we were in love, we fantasized about the future. I hoped that in an auditorium full of friends and covered with pink roses, he would play the piano for me and I would marry him in a white wedding dress. Pink roses. Playing the piano. It turned out that when I once pressed him about what our wedding would be like in his fantasy, the words he casually answered that I wanted to play the piano, and have he walk towards me from among the pink roses were not for me. Instead, it was a promise he once made to another girl. Tokata seemed to be moved by what she said. With tears in her eyes, she held my hand. Miss Kiao, I am really grateful to you. In these years when I was away, you took such good care of Messiah. You don't know, when I first broke up with Messiah, he chased me to a foreign country. In a foreign country where he was unfamiliar with the place. He searched for 3 days and 3 nights and almost got hit by a car. I was really afraid that he would degenerate. But fortunately, you accompanied him through that dark period. I couldn't listen anymore and couldn't figure it out. Since they love each other so much, why did they break up? Whom have I been in love with all these years? In these years when Messiah was with me, was he thinking about spending years with me, or the regrets with another girl? At this moment, it seemed that I couldn't see clearly at all. Tokata also told me. Actually, At first I didn't want to take Messiah back. After all, you have accompanied him for so many years. I don't want to be a third party. But Miski Ow. You don't know this yet. Right? On the night when I just returned to the country, Messiah was drunk and sent me a message asking if I was willing to marry him. I just replied that I was willing. Then he drove to the downstairs of my house. In the dark corridor, he kissed me recklessly. In fact, it was just a little bit short. We would have been together. It's just that when he knew that I gave my first time to someone else, he got angry and left. It wasn't until he regained his senses that he said he would be responsible for you, and would not have any more contact with me. When she said this, the girl's face was full of pride. As if she could make my boyfriend come back, just by crooking her finger. And I was completely in a daze. No wonder Messiah was unprecedentedly enthusiastic towards me that night when he was drunk. It turned out that it wasn't just the catalysis of alcohol. Instead, he didn't get satisfaction from someone else and wanted to vent on me. Looking back on these 5 years when I was with him, I seemed to have become a joke. Looking at the girl's complacent look, I was so angry that I trembled all over and raised my hand and slapped her. You are so proud of being a mistress. Don't you have parents? When I turned to leave, I was pushed hard from behind. At the moment of falling down the stairs, my whole head went blank. The phone suddenly rang. It was Messiah who was preparing a wedding for another girl. I was lying on the operating table in the hospital. The world was spinning in front of my eyes. The ears were noisy and I couldn't hear what the people around me were saying. I only heard one person's voice say, "The patient is 5 weeks pregnant. There is bleeding in the lower body and head. Considering the safety of the patient, an induced abortion surgery must be performed immediately." My heart panicked. What, 5 weeks pregnant? I'm pregnant? No, I don't want an induced abortion. I don't want to lose my child. I lifted my hand with difficulty and wanted to grab the doctor's sleeve. But I was really too tired. Before I could say anything, I fainted again. When I woke up, the noisy sound around me disappeared. Only the cold beeping sound of the ventilator remained. The smell of disinfectant permeated the air. Lying on the hospital bed, I was in a trance for a moment and couldn't help raising my hand and placing it on my lower abdomen. Is the child gone? At this time, the doctor who came to make rounds told me with a solemn face, regretfully, "Miski Ow. The physical examination report of your visit to our hospital came out only today. According to the diagnosis results, you already have stage 3 gastric cancer and must receive treatment as soon as possible. But now your family members haven't arrived at the hospital yet." In the ward, in front of the beds of other patients, there are family members accompanying them. Only I am alone. The doctor told me that when they were performing first aid on me before, they had called a person named Messiah. But the other party hung up directly without answering. And in my address book, the rest are all leaders and colleagues. The doctor said, "Miski Ow. Your condition can't be delayed any longer. Please contact your family members to come to the hospital as soon as possible. During the operation, they must be present." After saying that, the doctor left. He wouldn't know that a long time ago, my parents divorced and remarried. None of them wanted me. They left me to my grandma in the countryside, and didn't even call me once. 2 years ago, Grandma also passed away due to illness. So I was left alone. God is always unfair. After taking away one thing from me, He will take away all that I have left. When Grandma was still alive, I also asked her if I was very annoying. So that's why Mom and Dad didn't want me. In that hot summer, the old man waved the palm leaf fan in her hand. The dry palm-like tree bark gently patted my back. Our Shishi is not annoying at all. Those who don't want you are blind and bad people. Sooner or later, you will meet someone who will never leave you. But Grandma, where is that person? Will he find me? In those hot summers, the old man's palm and the smell on her body were almost all my childhood memories. It wasn't until the old man passed away that I realized that I had been left behind again. The phone in front of the hospital bed rang. I asked the nurse who came to change the infusion bag to help me answer it. Messiah's tired voice came from the other end of the phone. Kiao Shi. Tokata said that you hit her today. Can you stop being unreasonable? I know you've been wronged recently. But she is a patient. Can't you even tolerate a dying person? My vision blurred. Tears slid down my temples and wet the pillow. Messiah changed the topic and said, I didn't call today to accuse you. Instead, I want to tell you a piece of news. Tokata's condition has been controlled. The doctor said that if her prognosis is good, she can be as healthy and live as long as a normal person. I won't marry her anymore. But for the matter between us two, let's calm down and think about it carefully first. Her condition has been controlled. But I am about to die. Listening to the cold voice on the phone, I smiled miserably. Messiah, there's no need to think about it. A person like you who is sanctimonious is not worthy of my lifelong commitment. Let's break up. My best friend Shanta from high school called me. We excitedly recalled many interesting things from high school. After that, she asked me, how are you now? Are you doing well recently? I had just shaved my hair. Looking at myself with a pale face in the mirror, I forced back tears and smiled. I'm fine. How about you? I'm fine too. Shanta paused for a moment and excitedly talked about things between her and her husband. She said how good her husband was to her, how obedient her child was, and how much her parents-in-law valued her. When she got to the happy parts, this girl laughed heartlessly. Her cheerful laughter was still the same as before. She said that we had all lived the happy life we had dreamed of back then. But I covered my mouth and cried bitterly, not daring to make a sound to let the person on the other end of the phone notice something was wrong. Shanta, I haven't. I wish I could go back to the past. Unfortunately, I can't go back. I talked with Shanta for a long time. Since she got married, our sisters have had less and less contact. Every time we talk on the phone, we just ask each other if we are doing well. As long as I know she is well, I can rest assured. After all, one of us must be happy. After hanging up the phone, I was already very weak. Messiah called me again and again, but I didn't answer any of them. After blacklisting all his phone numbers and WeChat contacts, I also asked a lawyer to sue his beloved girl in court. The reason was deliberate murder for killing my child. I have no family anymore. The only one who can protect me is myself. So even if I am going to die, I will never allow those who have hurt me to live well. When Messiah learned the news and somehow found out where I was in the hospital, he came over during work hours. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were injured. He stood at the door of the ward, not daring to come in at a loss. Get out. I closed my eyes and didn't want to look at him. Tears slid down the corners of my eyes. But he still came in. Just like always. He didn't take what I said to heart at all. Messiah squatted in front of me with red eyes and carefully held my hand to apologize. I really know I was wrong. Don't be angry anymore. Okay? I've already scolded Tokata. She didn't push you on purpose. If we lose the child, we can have another one. Don't harm your own body by getting angry. He rambled on. Probably he still thought he was very considerate. Unfortunately, I will never trust him again. Now I just find him disgusting. I shook off his hand and smiled through tears. Messiah, I thought you were just blind before. I didn't expect your brain was also broken. Whether she pushed me on purpose or not, you can just go to the bridal shop and look at the surveillance video. There's no need to come and persuade me to be magnanimous. Now, when I see you, I think of the proud look on her face when she said you almost slept together in front of me. Messiah panicked and wanted to hold my hand again. But I didn't give him a chance. My chest hurt like being cut by a knife. I looked at him coldly and said, Messiah, my child is dead. Our child is dead. And you are no different from that woman. You are both murderers. Messiah suddenly widened his eyes and took half a step back. His face changed from sadness to pale and helpless. But I didn't want to look at him again and turned over and lay down again. Get out. Don't come and disgust me again. I'm afraid I won't be able to hold back, and want to kill him to avenge my dead child. When Tokata called me, she questioned me about what I said to Messiah and why Messiah, who had originally promised to marry her, suddenly changed his mind. A person who is almost on trial still thinks about love. I couldn't help laughing. Missed when? After wearing a mask for so long. Do you really think that's your face? Do you really think Messiah loves you? No, he loves no one. Otherwise, he wouldn't have promised to marry you while still being unable to forget me. Tokata was infuriated by my words and cursed at me on the phone. Messiah's voice suddenly broke in. Tokata, I've warned you many times. Don't disturb Shishi. Why are you so unreasonable? When I heard this, my heart was calm. I just felt quite sarcastic. Look, Messiah really doesn't love her that much. But he doesn't love me either. His love is always selfish. He indulges his desires and wavers between two women. He wants to marry someone like Tokata who is considerate and suitable for him. And at the same time, wants to have an ambiguous relationship with his cute and clingy ex-girlfriend. And now, I don't plan to play this game with him anymore. I hung up the phone and sent the evidence of his and Tokata's infidelity collected by the detective to his company leader. In order to help Messiah manage relationships, I added the witch out of his leader's wife. The original intention was to help him build connections. I never thought that today, I would use this to deal with him. Time flies. We are all too fickle. The lawyer who helped me handle Tokata's lawsuit came when I had just finished chemotherapy. A familiar face made me slightly stunned. It's you? I was lying on the hospital bed, sweating profusely from the pain. I didn't even have the strength to speak. A mirror on the table reflected my pale face like a ghost at this moment. The man in front of the hospital bed was wearing a suit. He was handsome and upright. His thick eyebrows were tightly knitted together. How did you make yourself like this? I smiled weakly. Ask your good friend. Luca is Messiah's former friend. At first, when I had a blind date with him, I mistook Luca for the blind date object. After chatting for a long time, at that time, I was still a little relieved, because Luca's appearance was too ostentatious. If we really got together, I'm afraid there would be a lot of peach blossoms to deal with in the future. So later when I saw Messiah again, I fell in love with him at first sight. Not only because I had just been saved by him, but also because he had a quiet and unique temperament. His appearance was not as outstanding as Luca's, but he was also, the more you looked at him, the better looking he was. I thought I had chosen the right person. But reality slapped me hard. Character has nothing to do with appearance. A person who is naturally greedy will still cheat even if he looks honest. Hearing my words, Luca curved his lips and smiled. The smile was faint. I haven't had any contact with Messiah for a long time. I was stunned and wanted to ask him why. But the wound was too painful. It felt like there was a hand stirring in my stomach. My face changed and I leaned over the bed and vomited. Sorry. I made you laugh. I was weakly lying by the bed. My hair was stuck to my face by cold sweat. Without looking in the mirror, I could imagine how ugly I was now. It was really too embarrassing. Luca didn't say anything. He bent down and picked up the trash can I had just vomited in. Rest well and don't think too much. He left this sentence and went to deal with the filth. I stared at his back in a daze. After a long time, I smiled bitterly. Even outsiders wouldn't despise me. But Messiah was angry with me because I soiled the sheets during my period. It's a pity that I only understand now that whether a person loves or not is really too obvious. Luca promised me that he wouldn't show mercy to Messiah because of their past friendship. He handed over the evidence of Tokata harming me to the court and officially filed a lawsuit against Tokata. I heard that Messiah was looking for a lawyer everywhere to help Tokata with the lawsuit. For this reason, he came to the hospital to harass me. He said that Tokata was kind to him. When his parents died, it was Tokata who led him out of the darkness. He also said that this was the last time he helped that woman. I felt sick listening to it. After saying these lies so many times, I'm afraid he himself believes them, right? He still didn't admit that he still loved Tokata until the end. He used gratitude and inability to bear as excuses for his infidelity. I wonder if after many years, he will have the face to see that dead child. I asked Luca to make that woman pay the price. He agreed. In court, he defeated Messiah and Tokata's lawyer. In the end, the case was won. Tokata was not only found to have killed my child, but also had a history of drug use. She had been caught by the police twice in 4 countries. When she came out of the drug rehabilitation center for the last time, she was found to have intermediate stage cancer. On the day she met Messiah, she had no money and fled back to the country. She wanted to cling to Messiah, this big tree. Unexpectedly, without much effort on her part, Messiah eagerly offered himself. In the end, Tokata was sentenced to 5 years. If it weren't for the fact that my body was really in too much pain, I really wanted to see her end with my own eyes. But I did see Messiah's end. When he came to find me again, he had changed. His whole face was unshaven. There was a dark circle under his eyes. The suit on his body didn't know how many days he had been wearing it. It was all wrinkled. When I was with him before, in order for him to dress decently, I would iron his clothes for the next day every night. But he would never know what I did for him. Once he took me to have a meal with his colleagues. His colleagues all said that he was refined in life. The clothes on his body were always so neat. He was stunned for a moment, and said that he didn't deliberately dress up. It should be because the quality of the clothes was good. I didn't say anything at that time. I just thought he was a straight man who was careless. Now I understand. He simply has no heart. He can never see other people's efforts. Messiah knelt in front of me and cried, begging for forgiveness. Shishi. You have vented your anger and taken revenge. Don't be angry with me anymore. Okay? I know that the things before hurt you. Now I finally understand your importance to me. I can't live without you. I really can't live without you in a home without you. Shishi. Let's get married. Didn't you say you wanted to have a home with me? If we get married, we will have a home. He knelt in front of me with a diamond ring. What he said was so sincere. However, he seemed to have forgotten that I no longer needed him to give me a home. When I was a child, my parents divorced and abandoned me. Along with it, the house we had lived in was also sold. Later, they each got married and had children. I became the one who was unwanted even more. I was shuttled among several aunts and uncles. Later, I was taken back to the countryside by my grandma who was in poor health to take care of me. Perhaps because I had never felt the warmth of fatherly and motherly love. I had a particularly deep obsession with home since I was a child. I want someone to accompany me all the time. I want a place to always belong to me. After being with Messiah, my definition of home became him. As long as there is him, it is home. But I didn't expect that obsession would turn into delusion. Messiah doesn't love me, and is not my home. I looked at him and slapped him hard. Get out. I don't want to marry you a long time ago. Just after a few chemotherapy sessions, I was tortured beyond recognition. My former colleagues learned that I was sick and came to the hospital to see me one after another. Luca came the most. On this day, he came again with a bruise on the corner of his mouth. I was lying on the hospital bed and when I saw him, I suddenly smiled. Who hit you? He skillfully dumped the trash by my bed, washed his hands clean and then massaged my shoulders, neck and arms. When he said, Messiah, he was obviously angry. The smile on my face faded a little, and I asked him why. Luca refused to tell the truth and only said, I just don't like that guy. I've wanted to hit him for a long time. But he didn't know that Messiah had already called me. He thought I was with Luca. He also said that when he took me to have a meal with those friends before, Luca kissed me when he was drunk. I was asleep on the sofa at that time and didn't know anything about it. Messiah called Luca a villain and someone who coveted his brother's woman. Only then did I understand. No wonder Messiah and Luca had the best relationship before. But later they had no contact. It turned out that the reason was me. On the phone, Messiah also choked and asked me, she. Was I wrong? How did we come to this point? Clearly. I love you. Listening to his hoarse and painful voice, I unconsciously read in my eyes. It wasn't because I was soft-hearted, but it reminded me of the details of my love for Messiah. In the winter of the first year we were together, Messiah went on a business trip to a neighboring city. Originally, it was said that he would be back in 3 days. But on the first day after he left, I had a stomachache. After making a phone call with him at night, I took medicine and went to sleep. As a result, when I woke up, there were figures swaying in front of me. Messiah, who should have come back 2 days later, hadn't even had time to change his clothes. He personally cooked porridge and brought it to my bedside. I was stunned and asked him why he came back. He replied that he was worried. Although his tone was very light, it made me fall in love for many years. In the years since then, I have followed him without complaint or regret. Even if he never mentioned marrying me, I still wanted to stay with him. But Messiah is ultimately too selfish. How can one heart hold to people at the same time? Seeing that I didn't speak, Luca thought I was distressed about Messiah. His voice was hoarse as he asked, "Do you still like him?" I shook my head with a shallow smile and looked at the sunlight outside the window. Suddenly, I remembered that afternoon of the blind date. I hurried to the coffee shop for the blind date after getting off work. By mistake, I took the man reading a book by the window as the blind date introduced by the matchmaker. The sunlight was floating, shining on the man's ostentatious but quiet side face. I walked over and greeted him breathlessly. "Hello. I'm Qiao Shi. I'm here for a blind date introduced by Aunt Lee." The man raised his head, with a slight look of surprise on his face. Then his eyes looking at me became soft and patient. If it weren't for the incident when I was picked on by hooligans later, I think we would have continued to go on with the wrong. Then, our ending now should be different. Right? But, who can say for sure? Perhaps from the moment of that afternoon, we were all wrong. This afternoon, a woman suddenly pushed open the door of our ward. She. I had just finished my 3rd chemotherapy. I had lost 20 pounds in total. Hearing this voice, I weakly looked towards the door. "Shanta, why are you here?" My best friend who asked me if I was doing well on the phone last time appeared in my ward. "Stupid girl. Why did you become like this? Why didn't you tell me when you were sick?" Shanta cried and rushed into the room to hit me. Although it was hitting, her strength was not as painful as a mosquito bite. I also gradually red in my eyes, but still said with a smile, "This is not because I'm afraid of disturbing your life." "And you? Why did you lie to me? Didn't you say you were doing well?" Shanta used to love being beautiful the most. She would perm her hair and paint her nails with the most beautiful nail polish. When her weight increased a little, she would go on a diet to lose weight. But now she is without makeup. She is wearing the most plain clothes. Her hair is tied into a low ponytail. Her figure is a bit swollen. No matter how I look at her, she is different from her youthful and beautiful appearance in my memory. Shanta said while crying, "I thought as long as you are doing well. I didn't want to tell you the bad things at home. Who would have thought that you would hide such a big thing from me? Why? Why did you become like this? Clearly we were fine when we met before." I smiled wryly. "Just think about how many years we haven't seen each other. It has been 5 years since we last met, which was when her little baby was born. 5 years is enough time to change too many things." The girl with clear eyes in the past is also full of exhaustion in her eyes now. "Tell me, what's going on between you and your Raiden? Is he not good to you after marriage?" I wiped away Shanta's tears and was full of heartache. But I can no longer teach those bad guys who make her unhappy for her like before. Shanta got married in the year we graduated from college. Unlike me, she married the boy she liked the most when she was young. On the day of her wedding, I personally sent her off to get married. At that time, her smile was so sweet, as if she was the happiest person in the world. So for many years after that, I firmly believed that she was still happy. But now Shanta calmly told me, I'm preparing to divorce Raiden. After 7 years of marriage. I have been disgusted with this family for 7 years. I was extremely surprised. How could it be? Everyone who knows Shanta and Raiden knows that Raiden likes her so much that he wishes he could pick all the stars in the sky and give them to her. In high school, the school strictly checked puppy love. But Raiden confessed to Shanta in front of all the students in the school under the red flag. The two have been in love for many years. As soon as they graduated from college, Raiden proposed to Shanta. On the day of their wedding, Raiden also promised in front of their former classmates that he would be good to Shanta all his life. It has only been a few years. How did they come to the point of divorce? Speaking of this, Shanta seemed a bit calm. She smiled self-deprecatingly. No matter how sweet it is when in love, it will change after marriage. Actually, Raiden has always been quite good to me. We got pregnant before marriage. When I was pregnant with Xiao Bao, I couldn't breathe because of the pressure on my stomach. I couldn't sleep all night. At that time, Raiden had just started working. He had to go to work during the day and stay up late at night to accompany me and coax me to sleep. Although he was tired, it was also quite happy. But later, there are too many such trivial things. He can accompany me to endure like this for 1 or 2 days. After 3 or 4 days, he also starts to get tired. In these years of marriage, we have changed from having endless conversations to having nothing to talk about. Every day, the topic is about children and parents-in-law. Some time ago, I found out that he was cheating. In our 7-year marriage, he cheated twice. For the first time, he had an ambiguous relationship with that woman for 2 whole years. As Shanta spoke, her voice still inevitably trembled and choked. She threw herself into my arms and cried and asked me, why did we become like this? Clearly we all had lofty aspirations when we were young and said that we would be happy together. How come now we are going our separate ways and are about to be separated forever? Yes, I don't understand either. In my youth, I looked forward to a beautiful future. In these years after graduation when I worked hard for it, why on earth did it end up like this? Later, Shanta stayed by my side and took care of me every day. I made an appointment with her that after I got better, we would travel and go to all the places we wanted to go but didn't go before. Then we would open a coffee shop of ours in a coastal city. But I clearly felt that my body was getting worse and worse. At night, I always suddenly vomited a large mouthful of blood while sleeping. My internal organs seemed to be misplaced and the pain made me sweat profusely. Luca also always came to take care of me. He and Shanta took turns coming almost every day. At night, I always tossed and turned in pain on the bed and twitched all over. Because I was afraid of being heard by them, I could only cover myself with a quilt and bite my teeth over and over again and swallow the painful moans into my stomach. The night became longer and longer for me. I had never been as eager for tomorrow as I am now. Because only when the sun rises can the pain on my body be relieved a little. This night, I dreamed of Grandma. She was still the same as in my memory and hadn't aged at all. I hugged her arm in pain and cried, Grandma. It hurts. I really hurt so much. Grandma's voice was choked up. But she didn't know what to do. She could only hold me in her arms like when I was a child and pat my back gently to coax me to sleep. When I woke up the next day, Lucas suddenly became extremely silent. I don't know if I couldn't help groaning in pain last night, and he heard it? However, I felt that my spirit suddenly got much better. Probably because I dreamed of Grandma. The pain on my body seemed to disappear overnight. With my body feeling comfortable, my mood also improved a lot. Shanta didn't come today because she went to a parent-teacher conference. Luca took a day off to accompany me. I asked him to take me out for a walk. After I got sick, I have been with disinfectant every day. It has been too long since I breathed fresh air. There is a newly opened amusement park near the hospital. I have never been to such a place since I was a child. So I asked him to take me to have a look. At first, Luca didn't agree. Your body is not well. Can we wait for some time? I shook my head. No. I want to go today. Only after saying this did I realize how willful my words were. In the past, I never dared to talk like this in front of Messiah. I was afraid that he would refuse or get angry. But how did I say this to Luca? And it was so natural. Luca really couldn't resist me, and had to reluctantly agree. Let's make it clear first. No exciting projects are allowed. He helped me put on a shawl, and then took a hat and put it on my head. Strangely enough, since chemotherapy, my hair has been shaved off. Luca has never disliked it once. If it were Messiah, he probably wouldn't even want to look at me. However, now Messiah seems to have changed. He doesn't go to work usually anymore and often runs to the hospital to see me. I didn't allow him to step into the ward. So he squatted and waited at the door every day. Several times when I got up at night to go to the bathroom, I saw him hugging his head and curling up in the corner in remorse. His shoulders were constantly trembling as if he was crying. At that moment, I didn't feel the slightest touch in my heart. I then realized that I had really let him go. I once thought that I would be in a terrible state without him. Now I find that it's just like this. Who can't live without anyone in this world? The pain is short-lived. When Messiah learned that Luca was going to take me to the amusement park, he immediately said no. With red eyes, he begged me. His attitude humbled to the dust. She. Can we wait until you are better before going? It's windy outside. What if you catch a cold again? For a moment, I could feel that Messiah was really afraid that I would die. But this has nothing to do with him anymore. Why keep pestering me? A dying person? Messiah, go find the one you really love. Don't pester me anymore. I looked at him expressionlessly and left with Luca. Who would have thought that half a month ago, I still hated Messiah so much that I wanted to die. Now I can talk to him calmly. Messiah probably also noticed my change. In an instant, his eyes reddened. He urgently blocked my way, and asked in a choked voice, She, do you really not love me anymore? I was a little impatient. I have said this question so many times. Why does he still ask? Yes. I don't love you anymore. Messiah, can't you have some self-awareness? Do I have to make it so clear? After coming out of the hospital, Luca looked at me worriedly. Are you really okay? In fact, you still love him, right? I quietly looked at the rising sun in the distance and pulled out a smile. I don't love him anymore. Really. Even if I still have any feelings for him. It's just a pity for everything I have given on him. After so much effort, I still didn't get what I wanted. It's a pity that I only understood until I was dying that things that can't be obtained should be given up as soon as possible. There is only one life. I should live for myself. Fortunately, it's not too late to understand now. I asked Luca to take me to the amusement park near the hospital. I played all the projects I had wanted to play there. When I was crazy, I laughed happily. At first, Luca was worried about my body and didn't dare to relax at all. Later, seeing that I was okay, he finally showed a smile. We ran to a Ferris wheel. I excitedly pointed to the top and said, Luca, I want to go up. It is said that people will go to a high place after death. I want to know in advance if I will be afraid of heights. Luca was holding a lot of things I bought in his hand. Rabbit ears, ice cream, and my coat. He was not impatient at all. Looking at me doubtingly, he said, Okay. You stand here and wait for me. I'll go buy tickets. After saying that, he turned and left. At the moment he turned around, I suddenly felt dizzy. Panic suddenly surged in my heart. In the next second, I fell to the ground. Before passing out, I saw Luca frantically dropped the things in his hand and ran towards me in big steps. Kiaoshi. Don't sleep. Wake up. Kiaoshi. Kiaoshi. Shi. Luca held me and rushed through the crowd. He ran towards the hospital like crazy. Something hit my face. It was hot and wet. Was Luca crying? I tried hard to open my eyes to see clearly. But I only saw a few blurred figures. There were Shanta, Messiah, and Luca. In the end, I didn't figure out if he cried or not. I died on the cold operating table. The doctors took turns to perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation on me but couldn't save me. After my death, my soul floated above the hospital, watching Shanta faint from excessive grief. Messiah held my body and cried bitterly. But Luca seemed numb, standing at the door of the ward in a daze. Several times he was almost knocked down by people. It wasn't until Messiah said that he wanted to take my body for burial that he suddenly rushed over and punched Messiah. "Don't stain her with your dirty hands." Luca gritted his teeth. His scarlet eyes were full of pain and regret. He said, "Messiah, the thing I regret the most is giving her to you 5 years ago. This time I won't give in anymore." Luca personally handled my funeral. Before I died, I told him about Grandma. After death, he buried me beside Grandma. That day, it rained heavily. Luca was wearing a black suit and holding a big black umbrella, just as stunning as when I first saw him. He stood in front of my tombstone. His eyes were red and moist. He said, "Kiao Shi. Love me in the next life. Okay? I have liked you for many years." I was extremely touched and gently answered him. "Let's see, Luca. Who can say for sure about the next life? If there is really an afterlife. I only dare to pray that I can have a happy family. Grandma is healthy. And the child can come back to me."